Hello and welcome to BUA 649, management policy or strategic management, whatever you want to call it. It's idealized as kind of a capstone course, one that's supposed to bring the various pieces of the puzzle together. I recognize that not all of you are taking this at the end of your program, but we're still going to treat it in the way it was intended. So, I think it's going to be an interesting semester. Looking forward to getting to know all of you as best I can, hearing your views. Hope that we can all learn from one another. The nature of the course. I have set the course up so that it is mostly asynchronous. That is, you can work on it when you have time during your work week. That's kind of the idea behind the online offerings. That said, it is not completely asynchronous. There are, in fact, weekly lessons. I will open up new material, typically on Sunday night or Monday morning, and you will have a week in which to complete that material. I will offer videos and written content. There is also a book that is important that you read, and to help encourage you to read, there will be quizzes each week on chapter material. Think of it as kind of the reading before class that we always ask you to do. And as students, I know I didn't always do it, but I found that I actually learned better when I did. So I'm going to encourage you to do the same. And again, there'll be weekly quizzes on that material. There will also be regular discussion board postings to let us be interactive. You know, one thing about this course that is a little odd when you move it to an online, and everything is a little different moving it online, but this course is particularly supposed to be interactive, case-based application, and a lot of discussion. So we're going to make use of discussion boards. That does create a little bit of problem with the asynchronous nature, because we're not all right there hearing everyone else's comments. You have a week in which you can make your posts and reply to others. I'm going to encourage you as much as you can to try to get your initial posts up early. It's just a reality that if you wait till Sunday night at 10 or 11 o'clock at night to complete your lesson and make your posts, no one else is going to see them. They are not going to contribute to the class discussion. And that to me is one of the most important learning tools we have, is each of you bringing your own views, your own perspectives, your own experiences to the material and sharing it with others. So I'm going to encourage you to do what you can to get started earlier rather than later in each week. Blackboard, of course, will be our primary means of running the class. And let me take you to the Blackboard page now and let you kind of see how things are going to be laid out. When you come into Blackboard, this is what you're going to see. All right, the content page, I have it set up to default to that when you come into the course. Various links here that you can follow. See there the link to purchase your textbook. You can do it through that link, either hard copy or an online version. I believe there are hard copies available at the bookstore if you prefer that. And certainly there are used copies and probably new ones available through your usual outlets online. So do whatever you want, whatever works best for you. Other things you'll see as you kind of come in here, a link where I will put the syllabus and any other administrative material. The link to the lessons, we'll come back to that in just a second. And then a few others. If there are additional readings, I'm going to post them in this folder. There are some links I have put for analysis, links to library databases and other things that you might use when researching a firm or an industry. When we have assignments, which we will have fairly regularly, you can turn them in through this folder, as well as any career-related material. There's a job fair for those of you who are looking for jobs. For example, a career fair coming up later in the semester. So all that said, let's go back here to the lessons, because that's kind of the major thing we will be using. When you click on the lessons, it will come up with whatever lessons have been opened. Right now it is the overview and introduction and lesson 1. Okay? Let me click on lesson 1 here just to show you kind of the basic format. Okay? I have laid out each lesson so that you are supposed to work through it in order. That is, you can't just click down here immediately. Now, I think there is well, certainly I have a logic to the order in which I have presented the material. Whether you choose to follow that or not, I can't really control, but I would encourage you to do so. As you read one and ready to move on to the other, you click the next arrow. In this particular lesson, I have put a little video
Hi there.
that will come up, just kind of
first
introducing the material. Then there is the quiz on the chapter material. You should note on the quizzes that they are timed, they are limited. I think long enough for you to complete them if you have read the material and prepared. Probably not enough time for you to try to look up the answers as you're taking them. So be aware, in this case, there's about 10 questions and you have 15 minutes. That ought to be plenty of time for you to get through it. Then there's kind of what I would call my contribution. In this particular lesson, it is mostly written material. Sometimes it'll be videos, sometimes written, sometimes a mix. And you can kind of work through those. And then I do have one other little video in this one, a little clip from Michael Porter.
If we're going to have a good strategy, we've got to think clearly about what strategy.
From other classes, Porter's 5 Forces for Industry Analysis, for example, talking about his view of what strategy is. And then it's trying to move you into kind of our final little section on strategic analysis. And then directing you to the discussion board, right, where you get to kind of compare and contrast the different views of strategies that have been offered. That's a fairly typical lesson that we would go through. Do want to come back though and highlight what's in the overview and introduction. All right. I think this is worth reading in addition to watching this video. It talks about a little bit about me, but then kind of the nature, kind of puts in words some of these things I've been telling you. Talks about what your contribution should be. Again, this is supposed to be interactive. You are supposed to offer views and experiences and interpretations and ask questions. You can contribute in a lot of different ways, with the focus, as you see, kind of highlighted here in bold, why? Much of the material we're going to be covering, certainly when we apply it to businesses, they're often, if not almost all the time, is not going to be a quote-unquote right answer. There is going to be an interpretation, and what's important is how you justify that, using class concepts, using the material we're covering. Why did you come to the conclusions and interpretations that you did? There's also a little note on civility. While I would encourage disagreements and discussions, in the same way that I would insist on civility in the classroom, I'm going to insist on civility in discussion board posts and interactions. And then finally, this overview does have a little task for you to do. Really two. One is to, as I call it here, lose your anonymity. Put a picture, if you don't have one in Blackboard, and it walks you through the process so that we all have faces for each other. We are not anonymous. We are real people, and we can see what each other looks like and get to know one another. And then there's a little bit to a discussion board post where you can tell us about yourself and read about other people. Be creative, whatever you'd like to offer on kind of who you are, where you came from, what experiences you bring to the table here. So, I think that is about it. About everything. I'm looking down at my notes to see what's there. Really looking forward to the class this semester. This is the third time I will have offered this in an online version. I think it gets better each time. Jump in, get involved, holler anytime if you have questions. I say, look forward to what the semester has to bring.